content is made to inform, educate, and of course, sell. That's the power of product-led content that seamlessly mentions your product's benefits while providing educational insights to your readers. Today, Masooma Memon, a freelance writer for companies like Shopify, Vimeo, and Hotjar, shares the ins and outs of product-led content. In episode 58 of Marketing Power Up Show, you learned, first of all, what is product-led content really? Second, how to balance promoting your product and providing value. Third, real-life examples of SaaS brands executing product-led content strategies effectively. And number 4, a power-up that has accelerated Masooma's career. Before we get started, I've created a free power-up cheat sheet that you can download and apply more product-led content to your business. Get it now at marketingpowerups.com or find that link in the show notes and description. Are you ready? Let's go.
Marketing Power-Ups. Ready? Go! Here's your host, Rambly John.
Well, thank you for joining us, Masooma. I'm super excited to be talking about product-led content. It's something that you have talked about quite a bit, something that you've written, I'm guessing you created for some of your clients like Vimeo and Hotjar and other companies. I'm curious, first of all, I've heard it a few times. It might be related to product-led SEO, but I'm curious, what is product-led content? What is that specifically? If I had to guess, it would be content that talks something about the product. Is that a good guess, or like is there a little bit more
Yes,
nuance to what that is rather than
it's
just
almost there. It's just almost there. So it's content that features your product. It talks about your product. So it could be a small slip-in, could be a mention, or it could be, product how-to. So for example, how to create to-do list with our tool, or how to, for example, if we are using Riverside to record this, so how to record a podcast with Riverside. So anything throughout the funnel, it could be anything throughout the funnel that you're talking about your product. But the key here is being educational instead of salesy. So by taking an educational approach as a byproduct of the educational approach, you get conversions.
I feel like that's the key part. It's actually something that we've been talking a lot about in AppKeys, where there's this tension where somebody from our team says, "Hey, we should add some mentions to our product here. How we can create a checklist with AppKeys if we talk about checklists." And another person in the team is like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about the product at all in the blog post because it's like about education." And it really is about that balance and making sure that it is contextual as well. It's not being too salesy. Would you say is what makes it work well?
So yeah, that's why I said educational, so that you don't end up accidentally being intentionally or unintentionally being salesy. So what works is you keep the focus on the reader. And to do that, you need to, number one, empower the reader. And number 2 is lead with empathy. So when you empower the reader, most of us say we need to make the content actionable, but I like to think of it as empowering the readers. By the end of the post, whatever questions you are answering, the reader should feel like they have answers to it, in-depth, proper answer that they can solve that problem themselves. So you're empowering them to solve your own problem. So while you're empowering them to solve their problem, you can easily mention your product in between because you're basically solving their problem, right?
Mm.
And then after you've done a piece of content, or while you're planning your piece of content, in both the cases, you need to be empathetic. So after you're done writing the post, for example, let's say review your product CTAs. Would this be a step? Say you've added a step to sign up for your product, right? But read it as like whatever, depending on whatever funnel stage you are. If this goal is going out to someone who is not, is in their early stages, it's still learning about their problems, still learning about your product, and you feel like this as you put yourself in your reader's shoes and you feel like this is not a step that you would take yourself, then remove that CTA.
Mm.
A better thing you could do is lead them to an advanced guide. The thing with most top funnel content is to capture people in your content funnel. I like to call it the content playground. Like you have lots of content, you capture them in your library and you turn them into, they start trusting you as a source of, that can answer the questions well. And when you do that, you're in a position to educate about your product and as a result, sell it.
That's such a visual word that I'm attached to. The content playground, the product-led content playground, where you have when you're in a playground, you have many options on what to play with next, and really like it's about deciding and helping them guide to the ones that make more sense to. Is that what you mean by the playground? I'm curious, like
Yes.
what
So it's like you're leading people from one content piece to another content piece. So most people would include a CTA to sign up for your product, especially for early stage readers. And I feel like that is completely unnecessary. And
mm,
then you're not empathizing with your reader and you're taking a more salesy approach, pushy approach to getting them to sign up. But if you were to lead them to another, like for example, like you said, there are lots of places to play in a playground. So for example, you lead them to another content piece, which is why I'm a fan of CTAs that lead to advanced guides or related guides, as well as internal links within the content. So you have to keep them on the page. You move them from one piece to another piece enough that they remember your name so that whenever they're Googling a similar problem, they remember your name and click on your search result. Even if it is not ranking on the top, they'll be like, oh, I remember them. Their content was good and it gave me good enough value. So I'm going to read them again. So you're capturing them in a way.
that makes sense. I love that. That's probably going to be the title of this episode: product led content playground. I love it. We've been talking about like examples of product led content and how it might fit into like top of the funnel, but I want to take a step back and talk about the benefits of it and why it should be such an important part of content strategy. I know you talked quite a bit about this in a webinar you did, but like I'm curious what that is for my listeners who are like, great, I'm doing this. Like, why should I do it even? Like, what's the benefits to the company for creating product led content?
So there are like a handful of benefits. The most common ones, the most obvious ones are one is product education and awareness. So I like to say that closed mouths don't get fed. So if
Mm,
unless and until you don't talk about your product, you don't educate what you do, you won't be able to sell. So you have to talk about it at one point or another, right? And if you're creating like really helpful content that's empowering your readers, you've earned the full right to actually talk about the product. That's one of the benefits. And then the second obvious one, which is everybody's aim, is to drive conversion. So free users to your product or demos, etc. There are two. So one is product awareness, and then customer acquisition. But there is also another benefit to it, which is customer retention and reducing activation time. So, for example, let's say I've been reading about a tool on their blog because content nowadays is part of any user's journey. They will interact with your content, be it at some point in the journey where they're learning about your product and want to buy about your product. They're probably going to either read an email, read your emails or your blog content or anything like that, right? Or watch your webinar, or listen to your podcast or something along those lines. So the thing is, when they do that and you're educating them about your product, right? You're telling them how to use it. A very simple, I'll give you an example which can help you understand this, is when I started my freelance business, I was wondering how to manage all the projects in my pipeline. And so I would Google how to organize my projects, and I came across Trello. And they gave me all these screenshots on how to set up my Kanban board. And so when I signed up for their product, the activation time was relatively low because I had seen all those screenshots and I was able to quickly reference them to create my first Kanban board. So the aha moment, the point where I am, I'm sure because you talk about product-led onboarding, I'm sure you'd agree with me on this, but it contributes to reducing activation time.
mm,
And because your target reader is not just new people who could use your product, but also someone who's already using your product. So using product-led content, you can unlock product use cases as well. So you're getting people to use more of your content. So there are 4 major benefits of this: product awareness, customer acquisition, customer retention, and then reducing churn, as well as unlocking more product use cases. So increasing the retention time.
I like how you're calling that piece out particularly. I think I'm a big fan of that. Where like, how can you show the value of the product even before they sign up? Because then they're primed and ready to go. I mentioned that in my book quite a bit. Like, hey, how do you do that? And product led content is such a great way to do that in context of reading and educating about something like what you just mentioned about Trello, or other examples that I can think of is like, recently I was looking at some kind of financials. I have a 16-month-old kid, and I'm looking at like, how do I save up for his his education 20 years from now. When he goes to college, I looked at a blog post like, here's some vehicles, and by the way, you can sign up for it now, and this is with Wealth Simple, which is this tool, this platform that you can do it. And I was like, oh cool, let me sign up. I already have an account with you guys. So I did that, and I feel like that's, before I even signed up, I was like, I already know what I need to do and what I'm gonna get. So I think that's a good call that you're calling this out. It's not just an impact in the top of the funnel. It actually could help activate and reduce churn, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Which, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I was just saying it's sometimes hard to measure things like how your content is contributing to reducing churn and activation time. But like if you're constantly in touch with your paying customers and you're talking to them, they might be able to tell you they are still referencing your content to unlock more product use cases, which is one way to find out how effective your product-led content is in reducing churn and increasing retention.
I think the other thing that just hit me is like, often we write the blog posts or content, or create the content, and we don't realize our customers are also consuming that content. And when we like offer them more advanced, not necessarily use cases or guides or advanced features of the product, you can actually deepen their relationship with the product there. And I feel like that could potentially be the out like the next effect, the second order effect of content like this is, you're actually not just educating your market, you're actually also educating your customer about new ways to do things to solve their problems, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say it's just not you're not unlocking more product users, but also more product uses for your paying customers.
That's catchy. That's I was gonna say tweetable, but I'm not sure what's happening with it. Is it Xable? But it's link like it's a hook for a LinkedIn post. You're not just creating more product users, you're creating more product uses of it. That's pretty good. Which kind of digs into how, we've been talking a lot of, we've talked about examples for top of the funnel, but how do you map out those product led contents for middle or bottom of the funnel? I if I saw it correctly, you had a few like ideas for that or use cases for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, before you start creating content for the deeper funnel stages, you need to document all the features that you have, which ICP they are for, and not just what are the benefits of using them, but also what outcomes they help your ICP achieve. So whatever jobs to be done your ICP has, they need to be able, you need to document that to be able to write resonant middle and bottom funnel of the content. There's one. So start off with creating a feature cheat sheet where you lay out all the features and then its benefits, why anybody should be using it versus the traditional way of doing things, right? And then what are the outcomes or the jobs to be done that this particular feature can help a user achieve. Then you can, throughout, whether you're working on product-led content yourself or with a team of internal writers or with external writers, throughout you can reference this feature cheat sheet to not just create more content, plan more content, and decide which feature goes into which blog post in your creative briefs, but also make it easy for writers to write product-led content. Makes super easy to even outsource deeper funnel content, which most companies are hesitant when working with freelancers. That's one of the things that I highly recommend when I start out with clients, is that you talk to your customer-facing teams, learn about the ICPs that you're targeting, their jobs to be done, and then how the feature maps to the pain point, right? And then whenever you're creating deeper funnel content, I recommend that you keep it transparent, right? So don't just talk about who you are for, but also who you are not for. So you're driving, a lot of stakeholders might not agree with me on this. Like, we want to cast the net as wide as we can. But honestly, you're saving yourself tons of time, your sales reps tons of time in the long run if you are being honest about who you are for. And then you're also building trust with those users. So for example, let's say you omit the point that you don't have a mobile app, but I'm looking for a solution that also offers a mobile app, right? But your content did not mention that. And I ended up signing up for you. Or even if I don't end up signing up for you directly and I go into user reviews, on third-party platforms like G2, and I find out that you don't offer a mobile solution, you're breaking my trust. And it's okay, it's just one user. You could think of it like that. But the problem is that one user, that one potentially interested customer will talk about it with other people. So you don't want that, because word of mouth is fast. And suppose that person itself, like say, for example, I signed up for your app and it did not have a mobile app, and then I have to churn. So you're seeing more churn, and then 110% negative word of mouth, because I will go in and tell my colleagues or my network, people in my network, and I'll tell them they don't have a mobile app. And, they could have mentioned it. They could have saved both themselves and me the trouble. So that's another thing I recommend, being transparent. And the third thing that I recommend, which a lot of companies make a mistake of not doing, is that they don't include social proof. So you're not including customer stories or case studies. So instead of saying we're the best, just let the data and your customers do the talking.
I'm a big fan of social proof. I love how you're really like talking about, hey, be transparent what your product can do, and as well as like adding pulling in social proof. It's like those social proofs and those quotes or those testimonials from customers are great way to like really tell people, hey, this is the kind of customers that fits into our ICP, and as well as like it's their words, it's not ours. They're
Yes,
saying that it's
exactly.
our product is good. It's totally different when
Yeah.
like I'm so good versus like somebody else saying, hey, their that product is good itself.
I know. It's a social proof is super powerful. And I know that until now people just rely on it to buy. So there are like tons of ways you can gain your trust using social proof, right? And even if you have, a lot of people have an entire cataloged area where they have their case studies, but they don't take those stories and mention it within their deeper funnel content, when you could be. Because instead of saying we can help you save X hours, just say X person or say X company used our product and as a result save X hours. So again, you're not doing the talking, you're telling a story, you're telling your other customer's story, and people are going to believe it more. There's one. And then you can also use data. For example, user gems. They paired up, their content team paired up with the data analyst team, and they looked into two. So what basically user gems does is it tracks your alumni customers, so champion users who were users in the past. And when they switch their job, sales rep can reach out to them to say that, hey, do you want to use our product again? And, in a way, it gets you warm leads. So what it does, the same thing that User Gems does, LinkedIn Sales Navigator can also do it. Now, but they're not saying don't use Sales Navigator, or they're not saying we are better than Sales Navigator, but they have solid data showing that you will get X amount of leads from LinkedIn, but Y amount of leads from User Gems, which are a ton higher and a lot better in terms of quality. So they're making their case not only using social proof for how customers are using, but also using data.
I know. That's so good. And I mean, I have to take a step back as well. And I thank you for sharing that process. You talked about how you map out your features. I think you have a cheat sheet I saw somewhere that I'm gonna recreate or link to for folks to download at marketingpops.com. But there was one other thing that I want to like double click on that you mentioned. You talked about common mistakes that companies make when it comes to product led content. You gave a few examples in those response, but like, what are some common like what are you mentioned around like, hey, like not adding social proof enough, but like what are some other common mistakes that companies make when when it comes to product led content?
Okay, so another major one is feature bloat. So what they do is they talk about not one feature, but a ton of features. A handful of features go into the base. But whenever you're creating product-led content, you have to remember that you know the product well, but the reader does not know that product as well as you do. So you cannot confuse them. If you talk about a ton of features or because there are lots of SaaS products that have they have an umbrella group, and then they have tons of platforms or solutions that people can use. And they talk about X, Y, Z, A, B, C, everything on top on each other in one post. But what it does, it leaves your reader confused. Again, if you step back and put yourself within your reader's shoes, you'll see that for someone who doesn't know the product, that this can be confusing. They might just end up like, what exactly does this product do? Or they might just think that, okay, I get that they do a lot, they solve a lot of my problems, but they're just too diverse for me. So take it step by step. Instead of talking a ton of features, limit it to 1 to 2 features. Specifically, if you are in deeper funnel content, limit it to 1 to 2, 1 to 3 features. If you are in talking about your product in the top funnel, strictly limited to one piece, one feature. So that's one feature blow. That's one problem that I see companies make, and a lot of marketers have also admitted and shared that they're guilty of feature bloat, and I am guilty of it myself when I started creating product-led content for clients. So there's that, and then thinking that you can create this type of a product in a silo, which you cannot. You need to be talking to sales. You need to be talking to customer support. Because without talking to them, you will have zero grip on who the feature is for, which ICP it is for. Let me give you another example. Let's say you're selling a CRM. A CRM can help both the sales rep as well as a sales manager. But both these ICPs have completely different jobs to be done. So for sales managers, is increasing their team's productivity by providing them the tools they need to do their job better. And for sales rep, it's hitting their sales quota. Now, if you were creating product-led content for both of these, you're confusing the target reader as to who this piece is for and who do you want to convert, right? So you need to be talking to your sales team to learn exactly which ICP you're for, how the feature maps to the pain point, and what jobs to be done it helps achieve as one. And you also need to be talking to your sales team to learn which tool people are switching from to yours. So that will help you create those X or versus Y competitor tools, right? You get the keywords from there. So that's one another thing that you can learn from talking to your sales team. And then you could also learn what hesitations people have while they're considering to buy a product, like when your sales reps are talking to those people, and you can answer those hesitations within your content, which is why I say that you cannot create. So there's, lots of things that we are doing. We're talking to the customer facing teams. So you cannot create that content in a silo. And then the third thing I would say is you do not give enough peeps into the product. So there are not enough product screenshots. You need to build that excitement. You need to show the product is easy to use. You need to show that it's not a cluttered UI inside. And all of that is extremely possible with when you include explainer videos and product screenshots within the content, explaining things step by step. But even if you're doing that, let's say you have those screenshots and you think that you're not making this mistake, double check that those screenshots are readable. Because that's one of the biggest problems I see, that those screenshots are not readable. So people cannot get a good idea or good peep into your product.
That's so good. I think that's so true. Sometimes I have to squint, and it's like when you click on it, you're hoping that it gets bigger, but it doesn't. So I'm like, just please zoom in into like what I need to do, what I need to focus on. Right.
It's another step in the process. It kind of adds friction to the content experience.
Interesting. That's a good. It's the first time I've heard that friction. And usually I hear friction is from the product perspective, but you're right. Like you want to make the content as easy to consume as possible, and that is friction. It is essentially content friction, which is a term I've never heard of. Is that, yeah, you've mentioned that before, or like that term content friction somewhere else, or you've read it somewhere?
I have, because I am big on content experience. So, for example, all screenshots are similarly sized. It makes a very small difference.
It's important, yeah.
But it makes a huge. It's a small thing that you can do, but it makes a huge difference for your reader because it's all aligned. It's consistent. All those screenshots are designed according to your branding, so that adds to the experience. And then there are internal links that when you click, they don't change the page that you were on, but they open in a new tab. That's another way to improve your content experience. So I like to, make content accessible and remove friction as much as possible so that, people, even if people are skim reading, they're enjoying and at least leaving with one take.
That's good. That's so good. Content experience, content friction. This is good. This is like melding. This is exactly the intersection of product and content, which is what product-led content is all about. I'm hearing. Well, Masooma, I actually want to thank you for talking about product-led content. I want to shift gears now and talk about careers and career power-ups. You've been in marketing for many years now. You've written for big companies like Shopify, Hotjar, and Vimeo. I'm curious, what's something that's helped you accelerate your career forward, whether that's something that's a softer skill like making friends and building community, or something that's more marketing focused? What is that career path for you?
So I think that will be talking about and writing your point of view. So don't be afraid to share whatever your point of view is. Write it down, share it online, for example, on LinkedIn, and or have a newsletter. And that will help you refine your point of view. It would help you get more clarity of thought. It will help you see holes in your philosophy or whatever is it that you stand for. So talk more about it. And I personally have been visible on social media. First it was Twitter, and now it's LinkedIn. And I also have a newsletter. So all of that, it helps me refine my POVs, what I stand for. And you know how it's, because in an AI world, you have to have a POV to stand out. So writing regularly, consistently, not being afraid of sharing your points, this angles that you want to take is one way to stand out.
I'm curious what helped you. I know for some people that I've talked to, and I was just part of a course by Caitlin Burgoyne and Neil O'Grady about this, about posting up more. One of the questions I see often is like, how do you get over that fear of posting? Because like you're gonna post it up, and then people will, I don't know, people think that they'll get judged right away. But is there, what has helped you particularly continue to post consistently? Is it just doing it and then at some point it becomes easier, or is there other tricks that you found help yourself?
So doing it and it becomes easier. That's definitely that. But when you're starting out, it's definitely difficult to get over that get started hump. So I would say have a close group of marketing friends, or even just your friends, have them read it, and then they'll give you the encouragement, the motivation you need to start writing online. And then, what's the other thing I'd like to do is, what's the worst that can happen? Like someone's not going to agree with you. That's okay.
Yeah.
You can politely say you don't agree, or if you're afraid, you still feel that you cannot voice your opinions as well, or you cannot articulate your thoughts as well. Just don't engage with them. It's okay if you don't in the start. It's okay if you don't. And,
Yeah,
in any situation, it's what's the worst that can happen.
that's true. You can also block them. Blocked. No, I'm just joking. Or delete that comment. I have had that. I've had those comments where like, this is totally off base. Delete. I don't need to have that in my life or in the feed. So that's a
But
thing.
it's okay to learn. It's okay to learn from other POVs. But the worst is it's okay to delete as well. But the worst is when people just spam your post with their own links that are totally irrelevant to the topic.
That's true. Right.
Please do not do that. And now I'm seeing this happen on Substack, and I'm like, no.
Oh, really?
This was one.
That. Interesting.
It happened with me today. So I was like,
That's
block,
super cool.
delete blocks.
Oh no. I hope it doesn't get that big too soon here. I like your point about like making friends. I think that's true. Also, when you post it up, you can get that initial boost of asking them to like just like it and leave a comment. I think especially if they've given you feedback around it, that's a great way to get that initial engagement while you're building up your own voice around this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also want to know your writing, like you've been so consistent with LinkedIn. Is there do you what is your process? Do you dedicate a whole day to just write a bunch of content, or do you like carve out like 15-20 minutes each day to create it? Or maybe it depends on how your day is going. Like tell me about like how you write for social, for LinkedIn particularly, compared to I guess other things that you write for. Or is it the same?
Oh no, it's different. So I have an entire calendar planned around it, and then I'm throwing in ideas as they come. So this biggest thing that will slow you down when you're creating LinkedIn content, in my experience, and what has affected me, is not having the idea and sitting to write. You're sitting to think when you're sitting to write, but then you're stopping at what idea should I be covering. So I get lots of ideas when I am working on client work. So for example, I'm currently helping teams create repurposed content engines. So when I was doing it, an idea occurred to me that I could, create a LinkedIn post on how I am helping the specific client. It could be a case study of sorts. So I just took out I have I use bullet journals for managing my to-do list. So there's one section over there where I have LinkedIn ideas and I put on, everything, the hook that ever was coming in my mind and stuff. And then it's either, depending on my workload for the month, it's either 2 to 3 days within the month where I write all the content, or it's every 1 hour in the afternoon every day when I write the post.
That's super cool. So you have a bank of ideas, and then you write a few of them all at the same time when you carve out those days, is what I heard. Exactly.
So a bank of ideas, also a Notion calendar that organizes where each idea on which day of the week it should be coming, so that it doesn't come across as me all the time, and it's also educational. So there's that.
And then in terms of do you create carousels or other things like that? Like, do you, I guess, find days to create those as well, or like do you outsource that to somebody else, or do you even do carousels?
For now, I'm doing them myself, but I am currently in the process of hiring a video editor. So carousels I do myself, I have a template in place, and I think I can do them best because they're going to be able to capture my voice better. But I am repurposing all the webinars and podcasts that I do. And so for them, I'm using Weed to create audio bites, sound bites for myself. But I want to be able to repurpose that content in more ways, for which I'm looking for a video editor.
If you enjoyed this episode, you'd love the Marketing Power-Ups newsletter. I share the actionable takeaways and break down the frameworks of world-class marketers. You can go to marketingpowerups.com to subscribe, and you'll instantly unlock the 3 best frameworks that top marketers use to hit their KPIs consistently and wow their colleagues. I want to say thank you to you for listening, and please like and follow Marketing Power-Ups on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you're feeling extra generous, kindly leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave a comment on YouTube. It goes a long way in others finding out about Marketing Power-Ups. Thanks to Mary Sullivan for creating the artwork and design, and thank you to Faisal Kaigo for editing the intro video. And of course, thank you for listening. That's all for now. Have a powered up day.
Marketing Power-Ups. Until the next episode.